So our mission is to increase the joy, because we know that for everybody, if you have truly passive income coming in, that's a joyful experience. That the greatest joy is when you're generous and you live your life in a way that's having an impact. Well, we are honored that we get to help multiply that in a sense.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Build to Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on their journey from millions to billions. We believe that the key to scaling your business and compounding your wealth starts every single day with a mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. Our ultimate goal, to help you scale and compound your wealth in life so you can give more or all of it away to help MVPs. I'm your host today, Brett Swarts. In every episode, we feature some of the world's top entrepreneurs, millionaires, and billionaires. They share their principles, values, secrets, and wisdom, providing each of us with the insights we need to reach the next level of success, faith, and impact. I'm excited about our next guest. He's out of the great state of Arizona, and he's on a mission to help all of us invest into real estate that can earn monthly, truly passive income. And he calls it increasing joy. In fact, we had a chance to meet at the Family Office Club event about a year ago, which is a great event. If you haven't ever checked that out. We talked about real estate. We talked about, financial freedom for our clients and truly having time freedom for our clients as well. And he's going to share his insights on what he does today. He is many years in the business. Since 2002, he's worked in real estate investment properties, and he's an Arizona real estate licensed mortgage loan originator, and he's the president and fund manager of Klinkhamer Fund. Please welcome to the show with me, Mr. John Klinkhamer. John, how are you doing?
Hey, good morning, Brett. Thanks for having me with you today.
Absolutely. For our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us just a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, you bet. I was working in ministry, volunteer young life ministry, which is helping kids know Christ, high school kids. And my friend at the time, who was a leader with me, was spending more time with kids in direct ministry, having an impact with MVPs, like you would say, kids that needed hope, that needed a mentor, that needed a direction for their life. So here's this guy. I'm on paid staff with this ministry organization. He's spending more time than I am with kids because I got other stuff I got to do, administration for the organization and stuff. And has passive income from real estate, like truly passive income. Like it was just dialed. It would pay him every month. And so he could have the highest impact with his life. And I just caught the vision for that because I knew my life was for the Lord's and to have an impact. And it was exciting to see. So he was doing rental properties. I got into rental properties. I got into fix and flips. And what I found was that, especially in fix and flips, the hard money lender was making the money every day with, in a sense, the least amount of risk. And I can remember this advice my dad gave me, which is, hey, you're leveraging to do some real estate. That's great. That's a means to the end. But he said, as soon as you can become the lender instead of the borrower, you're earning that interest every day. That really stuck with me. And so I had an opportunity to become the lender and take the group of investors I have and do hard money loans and truly passive income. And that's what we've been doing. And it's a ball. It's really amazing.
Oh, I love that you started that story. That brings it to life so quickly here, right? That he truly had passive income, which meant he had tons of time to leverage to make an impact, which is what, I think it's I'd say it's just half of the story when people say get financially free, right? Get the passive income to replace the living expenses and such, right? And the things that you want to do. But truly passive income, I think, goes to another level. So let's dive into that even more, John. When you're saying that, walk us through what that really means so that our listeners can get a grasp of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I know our listeners know what it's like to be a borrower. Right? You buy real estate and you've got a loan on the property. So just think about that for a second, because I want to flip the script. We're used to thinking about real estate where we're in an equity position, right? And we owe the bank, but I want to flip it. Okay. And so first we'll start with us as a borrower. We have a loan. That loan is secured against the property. So if we don't pay it, that lender is going to have the property. So it's very secure. If we're the buyer, we're in the equity position. They're in the lending or the debt position. They're more secure than us. And we're paying them every single month. In fact, the way loans work is every day of the year, weekends, holidays, every day of the year, that interest is being paid to the lender. So it's a wonderful place to be. So let's flip that script. What we do as investors in our fund, we give investors the opportunity to be the lender. And so we're a lender right now on over 200 properties in Arizona. We're in first position, secured, recorded, and title insured. And those borrowers pay us interest every day, every weekend, every holiday, every day of the year. That income flows into our fund and earns our investors truly passive income, about 10% annual yield, without lifting a finger. And our tagline is no tenants or toilets. What if you could do real estate and get all the benefits, but no tenants or toilets? That's what we call truly passive income.
Okay, I love this because this fits exactly in line with what we do here at Capital Gains Tax Solutions, right? Which is, we call these the 10 freedoms. And one of the freedoms is to no longer have the toilets, trash, and liability that's associated with the active day-to-day management, especially as it seems like states and governments become more and more regulated, and there's more and more stuff and hoops to hop through to get things done, rent control, insurance costs are going higher, all of the things that are associated with owning real estate that can be draining energy-wise and stress-wise. And then you look at what's called the ROE, like your return on equity. And if you can increase that from a 3 or 4%, and you can get it up to 6, 7, 8, or 9, or 10%, like, wow, it's incredible. And that's what most people really want. They go, oh, now that I've changed, I've achieved millions. Now really what I want to achieve is compounding my time, which means freeing up my energy. And that's kind of the framework that we work with is, how do you create truly passive income and to have compound your time and your energy versus having to spend your time and your energy to compound the active income. And so, what other thoughts are around that helps to make that mind shift that you want to bring to the table here?
Yeah. Well, I would imagine a lot of listeners have owned property directly, so they know what that feels like, right? You got to come up with a chunk. You got to go find the property, negotiate the price. You got to get the contract. You got to close it. You got to get your loan. You got to get the insurance. You got to get the utilities on. You got to find a manager. There's just all this activity. And for many of us starting, when I started, that's what I had to do. I didn't have a lot of cash to start with, so I had to leverage and bootstrap and put lots more of that time and energy in to get some equity built in the properties. But I know lots of your listeners are at the point where they're exchanging out of stuff. They've got that equity built, they've got some cash, or maybe they're just an entrepreneur with a high income and they have the ability to set aside some of that income every month to create more income. So take those dollars and get them working for you so that you're less dependent on the day job. And so I think that's the mind shift that we all want to make as investors is how do I get my money working for me? How do I get income streams that would cover my expense? And I just have found with everything I've done in real estate investing that debt, being that lender, is a peaceful place to be. And it just generates a very consistent, predictable income. And so I've just found it's one of my favorite places to be. And so our mission is to increase the joy because we know that for everybody, if you have truly passive income coming in, that's a joyful experience. I also know for a lot of our investors that are faith-driven, that think about their life for impact, they're thinking about what they want to put their time back into or their dollars towards. And we want to increase that joy because we know that the greatest joy is when you're generous and you live your life in a way that's having an impact. Well, we are honored that we get to help multiply that in a sense. We can take some of the money pieces and the income parts and help increase joy.
I absolutely love it. Klinkloansinvestors.com, klinkloansinvestors.com. That's KLINK loansinvestors.com to connect with Sean and to dive in even further. Yeah, I love the way you put that income streams I'm thinking not just to cover your expense, but to compound your time, your energy, and your joy, right? And your impact, right? I think all of those, when you can do each of those, each of them feed and build momentum on each other one, right? But as long as your time and your energy is spent just having the day to day or month to month or week to week or something there. I think of a story of a client. They had a $2.5 million apartment complex, and it was a nice apartment complex, fully occupied, good area. This is in Sacramento. Their return on equity is about 3 or 4%, but their time and their energy was still being spent managing the manager, every other weekend or something, driving. Even though they could have probably hired it all out, to be honest, I think a lot of people don't know that the water they're swimming in, right? They're just doing it. They're the frog just churning and churning and churning. And until they truly step away, do they know, whoa, this is a whole nother layer. They're just so used to doing it for all of the years. It's become routine, right? And so we did the deferred sales trust. They exited the asset. They deferred all the tax. We increased their NOI from $120,000 to $190,000, and it was truly passive. And they're blown away. They're like, Brent, wow, this is great. And the biggest thing for their joy was they had 2 10-year-old daughters. And they want to spend time with them, right? Like they're like, we don't have much time left with them. They're going to be 18, and they're going to be off to college, and then from college they get work, and from work they get, married or whatever, right? It's like this whole thing is like, how do I increase the joy and the impact on my kid's life right now? And at full circle moment, this is about 2 years ago we did this, right before interest rates really shot up in the air. So the timing was really a blessing. The diversification was a blessing. But more than that, we just did a live event, and we're traveling to Uganda with myself and my family, and we invite them and their family. We're going to be putting in clean water wells for communities over there. And so it's this now piece of, if I don't have that property, wow, I have all this extra time. Wow, I can get out of my, my vision that's kind of like right here in front of me, and I can look out into a world that's even brighter, and it's more impact opportunity. Any thoughts on that, John?
Yeah. I've seen a similar kind of thing. You're describing that story where someone has an investment property and they've got a lot of equity in it. And so they like the income, but there's a lot of work. But when you look at the actual ROI on their equity, it starts getting low the more equity you have, right? So you might have some cash flow, but if you got all this equity tapped in it, you calculate the ROI, and I've seen sub 5, I've seen 4, 3, and 2%, like what you're describing. And so to think, hey, what if I could 3x that or 5x that, right, with less responsibility? And I think sometimes we get stuck in our lane and we don't even believe it's possible. It's like, oh, how could that possibly be, right? But if you go from 3% to 10%, there's your 3+X. And I have a friend named Tom who had built a great portfolio of rental properties. He worked in the mortgage industry, and he just buy a property and he started seeing that as his equity got bigger, his actual return on the equity in that property was getting lower and lower. And he's just loved being in Klinkhamer's funds. It's been a fun thing for him. And one last story I'll tell is some clients of mine, George and Susie, they do ministry in Mexico, and they have a medical clinic in Mexico, and they have not pedorthis, when people lose limbs. I forget the medical name for it, but it's like help people with limbs. They have a dentistry clinic, and they're serving the poorest of the poor, the barrio they call it, in this neighborhood. And they just really appreciate what this accomplishes because it lets them be really focused. And they're in their 70s going to their 80s. They're like on mission going, this is what we want to do. Thank you for taking care of that so that we can keep doing our thing and our passion here. And I love seeing that. I love seeing people that make that transition and live with that joy.
Yeah, and we call it multiplying freedom and impact, right? And so we've got to be all looking at our time, our energy, the wealth, all, and being stewards of that. And being stewards of that is not just, and I don't say hoarding's not quite the word. That's a pretty strong word, but just sitting on what it is and being like, okay, now that I've done it and I put it in the barns and it's producing the thing, and it's even if it's turnkey, even if you're like, oh, I'm not even concerned about the toilet, the trash reliability, and I actually enjoy going and working with the tenants, and clients find a lot of pride in that, and then they have relationships, and so I can totally appreciate that. And at the same time, you go, okay, but is that equity that's in that property? Is it like, here's an example. I have a client, the property's worth about $14 million. It's producing about $700,000 of cash flow, and his depreciation is also 0. Okay. And so he's going to get crushed with capital gains tax. So that's one thing. But more than that, we could take that $14 million and just conservatively speaking with, let's just say they were, John, going to your fund at 10%, that's $1.4 million. That's $700,000 in cash flow to $1.4 million. And if you think about the impact, like say, funding a cause in a less fortunate area like Mexico, where they need healthcare and food and all the different things, and that amount of impact can happen right now, versus it sitting in the in that asset just sitting there, right? And a lot of I think the old guard is like, well, just wait for the stepped up basis, and we'll be able to, eliminate these capital gains taxes. Like, okay, well, that's one way to think about it. But what about helping people today that can make an impact? And it doesn't. It can be a cause that you believe in, whatever that thing is. And then we could also go into resetting a new depreciation schedule. We can go eliminating the estate tax, where most people miss. But this stewardship mindset is looking at your equity, I believe, in all areas of your life: equity of your relationships, of your time, of the mission, vision, values for your family, but also practically getting really clear on the numbers and saying, what if we shift it? What if we exit it? What if we can multiply that freedom and impact for ourselves or our family? Man, what kind of joy would that bring?
Yeah, that stewardship element. Well, Brett, when you and I met in Florida at that family office conference, I was so excited to learn about deferred sales trusts because most of the clients I knew that were exiting knew 1031. That's all they knew. And with you was the first time I'd heard about deferred sales trusts. And I felt like embarrassed, like how have I been in real estate so long and I didn't know about this strategy? And what I got excited as you were teaching me about it is how well it could pair with something like a fund, because our fund gives two options to investors. We can do a payout, which is every month they're getting that payout return. So if an investor is ready for that cash flow or giving or spending the money, they have a place for it. It pairs really well. But if they're patient, if they're looking like, hey, I'm growing for something, a future opportunity or another investment, we do reinvestment. So we'll just allow them to compound monthly instead of getting that direct deposit to their deferred sales trust or whatever their entity they own is. It's reinvesting and compounding monthly, getting in a higher yield. And sometimes people split the buckets and do a bit of both. Like I only need this much income, so let's do payout, but the rest I want to compound. And so with the flexibility of the deferred sales trust, my mind was just blown like, wow, this pairs so well with that. And I'm just excited. I've been letting all my clients and customers know about deferred sales trust because it's just a powerful alternative. And I'm shocked that more people don't know about it in the real estate investing world.
Yeah, and if you want to get started in deferred sales trust, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That is the company that we've dedicated our focus to, is helping people set up and execute on deferred sales trust exit plans, and deferring the capital gains taxes and investing in with groups like Sean, who are producing real estate truly passive, durable returns, and what we believe is the safest way to invest. First, trust positions on we'll talk about the average LTVs here in a second, but be able to do that in a way that helps to not only defer the capital gains taxes, increase your cash on cash return, but as well diversify away from just active ownership, right? You can put it into a fund that's many properties, over 200 for John's, and that's a cool way to do it. So, John, I do want to talk about your deferred sales trust story, because here's a really cool thing. I meet people every single day that are just like you, been in the industry for decades, right? Tons of experience, hundreds or thousands of transactions, and yet they haven't heard of the deferred sales trust. And so walk people through that journey, right? We sat down for lunch, right? And you're like, what is this thing? Maybe you thought it was a Delaware statutory trust. You had heard about it before, but you're like, no, it's a deferred sales trust. And we started to go through it. Walk through that journey of becoming, let's say, unawareness, skeptical, to like, wow, this really works and this is really cool.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot of great videos and illustrations, but for me, the aha moment was really realizing it's really just an installment sale. Right? It's really just a form of installment, because I'm familiar with those. In real estate, we have carrybacks and seller financing and all kinds of structures. And I've done deals like that myself, where I know that the tax is going to be deferred because I haven't received all that money yet. So that was kind of the light bulb moment, like, oh, that's brilliant. And of course, the IRS approves and already has a structure for installment sales. So that was amazing. The other really exciting part, my frustration with 1031 has always been two things. It's the restriction on the timeline, because I just meet customers, and I know you do, who are just stressing out over the timeline. The deal fell out. I haven't found the deal. I got this many days. I got this big tax liability. And so to have that timeline freed up with the deferred sales trust was very exciting. And then the other restriction in 1031 is the like kind. So as a private equity fund, we're in real estate, but we're not like kind to someone selling a property where the equity owner, because we're in the debt position and we're a pooled fund, we're a security. And so the deferred sales trust being open to different types of investments, including securities, pooled funds, private equity, is just really exciting. So that was great. And now that I know there's multiple trustees in the US and that have been doing this for a long time, that just gives me confidence.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing, John. And that is really the key, right? Understanding the fundamentals, that it is a structured installment sale, right? And then that it's, installment sales have been going on nearly 100 years or more. And then you're like, oh, okay, I can defer the tax on that. And then you go, and then it opens up this window of opportunity to invest and diversify. Again, you'll get started, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Okay, let's keep going on this, back to your funds and such. So interest rates have, gone up these last 2 years, right? How does that look for your return for your investors? Or does that mean that the return of the fund's going higher, or what's kind of your take on all that?
Yeah, our return has been ticking up nicely and consistently, but it's very level. We pay a 8% preferred return and then a 50% profit. And that's been averaging close to 10 for our investors. When interest rates go up, it has multiple kind of impacts upon hard money lending. Some are positive, some are negative. The net yield has been about flat to slightly good for our yield. But our yield's been going up just because our team has just been maturing and growing. We have more market share in Phoenix. We mostly have referrals for our borrowers because our passion is to give them such a great, joyful experience that they would want to just keep working with us as a borrower, that we're a really reliable, trustworthy, joyful source of capital for them as a fix and flipper or whatever strategy they're doing within real estate. So we use a little bit of leverage in our fund, and so that's helped us kind of tick that yield up. But overall, our goals are twofold. The first one is to protect the principal. That's our number one goal, because we know that once investors have made some money and have that equity, they don't want to see that disappear. And they should be taking less risk over time in doing things that really generate reliable income. So our number one goal is protect the principal. And then our number two is then generate the best yield that we can. But if need be, we will forego the income to protect the principal. And we've been able to do that for 8 years. We haven't lost any principal for a shareholder if they've been in our fund. Their principal has been protected and they've earned a yield every single year. And we have lots of investors that have been with us the whole 8 years and another 6-year history before that was a slightly different structure, but the same loans.
Okay, excellent. I love all of that. So reliable, trustworthy, joyful experience. It has been inching up some, and then the ability to make sure that you're protecting the principal and really educating people to encourage them to be diversified and preservation. I think that's really important. And when they built it, right? Number one goal, don't lose money. Number two, don't lose money, right? And so that's excellent. And then 10% is great too. What other questions have I asked so far that just the marketplace itself? We're post-election, so what's your outlook for 2025 and beyond?
Yeah. In terms of outlook, we still have a shortage of properties in the U.S. and especially in Arizona. We just don't have enough property. So demand has cooled. Everybody knows that. And when interest rates go up higher or have been staying kind of higher, we know demand cools. But people think only about the demand side. They forget about how important the supply side is, right? Values are all about the tension, the pressure or relationship between supply and demand. So it doesn't matter how low demand goes. If supply is still low, basically, it's about a balanced market, slightly buyer's edge in some parts of Phoenix. We monitor the supply and demand ratio very closely in Arizona with an index called Cromford Index. And honestly, it's like a cheat sheet for real estate because it really gives us a leading indicator of about 6 months, 6 to 9, what are values doing? And in our world, hard money lending, that's plenty long enough because our loans are short term. Our loans are about 6 months when we start, but on average, our pool's about 4 months for each loan before the maturity date. So we're able to kind of adjust things. If values are going down, we're able to adjust things. And so I'd say the biggest question I get, Brett, you'd ask, what's the question I didn't ask? I'd say the biggest question I either get asked or that people are thinking is, what's the risks, right? Okay, so I'm the lender, I'm secured, blah, blah, blah. But what's the risk, right? Well, with the two biggest risks for a lender, the first risk is that they don't make the payment, right? If the borrower doesn't make the payment, that income is gone. So we don't like that. And we work very hard to keep our payments on time. And in general, we collect them via auto payment. We get really on-time payments. But if a borrower doesn't pay, first of all, we have a default interest in our loan docs that's 29%. So that yield goes up almost triple instantly when they haven't paid. Now, we haven't received that income yet. That's being accrued or booked on the loan. But as long as there's equity, we're going to get paid. And what I mean by equity is if our loan is $100,000 and the property is $150,000, that's equity, we're going to get paid. And on average, our portfolio is about 70%, 70 to 75 loan to value. People often say LTV, loan to value, which just means the loan amount compared to the value of the property. So let's use $1 million property. On $1 million property, we have about $700,000 of loan against that property. So think about that for a second. If they don't pay, well, that's a bummer. Our monthly yield goes down a little bit, but the interest rate being accrued goes up to 29. There's 300,000 of equity in there. We're going to get paid. And Arizona is a very strong state legally for lenders, our foreclosure timeline is 90 days, 90. It's very fast and it's non-judicial, doesn't go through the courts. It's very quick and easy. We're going to get paid. So the first risk is they don't pay. We're not too worried about that because we're going to collect that money within about 4 to 6 months, as long as there's equity, which we always protect equity. So we're going to get paid. It's just a matter of timing. The second biggest risk is if values are dropping, we need to keep our loan well below the value of the property. That's the most important thing I do as a fund manager and our team focuses on. So we track that loan to value very faithfully. And we report it every month, the exact loans and the values and the whole thing. So our investors have 100% transparency into what's happening with our portfolio. And as long as we're shifting the loan amounts down compared to the values, even in declining value markets, we're able to protect the value of the fund. So those are the two biggest risks, loss of income and loss of principal. And we can't guarantee the first. Sometimes income goes down, but as long as we keep that loan to value, then we're going to protect the principal. And like I said, the income is going to get paid. It's just a matter of when. If they're not making the payment, we're going to get paid either before the trustee sale. The foreclosure is called a trustee sale. We're going to get paid before or at, or we're going to own the property. It's one of those three options. And we've done all three of those.
Okay, awesome. And a couple other quick questions on that. What you say 70% average LTV? What's your default rate? Have you ever lost an investor dollar? Have you ever not paid a preferred return or an investor back?
Yeah. Okay, so you asked about default interest rate. That's 29%. So when a borrower doesn't pay,
goes up the default, like what percentage of the loans are not paying?
I see. What default percentage? Yeah. Okay. Currently none. All of our loans paid. Over the 8-year life of the fund, it's about a 2% default rate where borrowers didn't pay. And the hard money industry across the country is about 5 to 10% as an average default rate. So we try and stay really low, and we achieve that by being very picky with the borrower and the property. And we run credit and criminal and background checks and referral checks on borrowers, where a lot of hard money lenders, because they're collateral lenders, they don't care. They just do the loans because they don't mind owning them. We don't want to own the loans. Okay. Then your next question was, has an investor ever lost capital in the fund? And the answer is no. We have a share price that's $1 per share. It's only gone down once in the life of the fund, 8 years, and it went down 1% to 99% when we had one loan that was in distress. So if an investor waited, our share price came back up to 1. About 3-4 months later, they didn't lose anything. If they wanted to get their money out, take a redemption during that, then they would have taken a haircut, but that was their choice. We had told investors the share price is going to come back to 1, just wait for it, and the share price came back to 1. And how we achieved that is we use the income to backfill that distressed loan. So that's how
that makes sense.
Which is also,
go ahead, sir.
Which is also connected to your last question, Brett. You'd asked, is there any months you haven't paid your pref? And there's 1 month out of 8 years we didn't pay it. We paid 0 because we had this loan in distress. So we used that income to backfill that one loan. But all the other months, so out of 8 years, the rest of the months except for 1, we paid both our preferred return of 8 plus a profit split.
Awesome. And how often can the investors get out if they needed the money? Like I said, I put $1 million in or 100,000 in. What's the minimum? And then how often can they get out?
Yeah. We do a $50,000 minimum. We started with a larger one, but we've been able to decrease that to make it easy for investors. And it's a 6-month lockup. So their money's committed for 6 months. After 6, they can ask for any or all of it back. And we have high liquidity in our fund. In general, my expectation, I said, is consider it maybe up to 3 to 4 months to get your money out. But in practice, it's been weeks, like 2 to 4 weeks. And the reason the liquidity is so high is because we have loans that are paying off every month. So those payoffs come in.
Perfect.
I'm sorry for my camera. The light's going like up and down. And
no, it's like 4th of July. It's like the fireworks that are going off in the background. The nuclear bombs here in Arizona, they're doing some testing out in the desert there, like New Mexico or whatever it was.
Dear boy.
Have you seen that movie Oppenheimer? He came out, and they're all sitting there with their glasses, and they're all waiting for it, and then it explodes, and it's it's Anyways, you haven't seen that movie? It's actually a really good movie. Okay, we digress. All right, we talked about your fund. We talked about diversification. We talked about truly passive. We talked about the deferred sales trust. Anything else you want to touch on before we go to the lightning round?
Yeah, no, I think that covers it really well, Brett. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. Let's dive into a lightning round. So knowing what you know now, if you can go back to your 20-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget, make sure you tell yourself to do?
I would have bought a house even sooner. We bought a house really quickly when we got married. But I would have bought a house even before I got married. My son did. He bought a house at 2021, and I'm so happy for him. Just really excited.
Awesome. Question number 2, what's the number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
The book that has really helped me lately is called What's Best Next. It's by Matt Kerman, and it's gospel productivity. So how to be productive in your life, but kind of in a biblical, God-centered sense. And he collates a lot of productivity literature, especially to help us not navigate a knowledge economy where there's so much information going on. How do we structure our week and not get overwhelmed and be productive?
Oh, I love that. I'll check it out. And question number 3, what are you most curious about right now?
Yeah. Gosh, I'm really fascinated by the fund world still. And particularly we're on the Schwab, our fund is now on the Schwab platform. So we're available to RIAs, registered investment advisors, and to any investor who has funds on the Schwab platform. I'm just kind of fascinated. We're a private equity fund, so we live in this private world, but Schwab is obviously much more connected to the public equity markets, and seeing the connection between the two and how that works and how we might be able to serve investors in new ways or easier ways, including self-directed IRAs, all that kind of stuff. It just geeks me out, and I have a lot to learn, but I love it. I'm very curious about it these days.
Cool. Next question, I guess, on the kind of tag on that. What's the best way you track all of these loans and all the payouts to all the investors and all of that? Like, what's the best way to do that system?
Yeah. We use a cloud-based system, and our main portal for investors is run by Appfolio. It's a publicly traded company that's amazing, has a great history and track record and top-notch cybersecurity, and it offers a portal for our investors. So our investors can 24/7 log in and see all the details they want to see. They got tax statements, they've got their earnings statements, fund reports, including our tax statements, our K1. So for your deferred sales trust clients, they may be in a lower tax situation because of that. But if there's a listener who has personal funds, our K1 is quite tax advantageous to investors via passive income and QBI, qualified business income.
That's fantastic. That's a key point, right? Versus 1099 is K1, which is good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Number one way you're using ChatGPT.
Yeah, here's just a fun, weird one, but I got to do a road trip with my daughter. We're going to take her car back to college. She's in Georgia, we're in Arizona. And I went in ChatGPT and I said, plan me a road trip. Want to drive this much a day, this many days. We like hiking. Here's some things we like. Here's kind of my interests. Here's her. Give us some breaks. And I just was blown away. I said, I want to see this city and I don't want to go through this city. And it built this. I was unbelievable. I just couldn't believe how quickly and clever and accurate it was. It was blew my mind.
It's fascinating, right? It's really cool. Mm-hmm. Excellent. This question, Jean, after all your history, right, and all the people you've helped and blessed with finances and serving before that, and help people with their walk to Christ. I'm curious, what's the best way that you stay practicing a stewardship over ownership mindset and also stay centered in your values?
Mm-hmm. Stewardship versus ownership. That's a big convicting one. When my wife and I were young, newly married, we did a Crown Financial course, which is biblical finance. And one of the first things we did really stuck with me. We took a quit claim deed, and in real estate, I like deeds. That was cool. I'm nerded out. I'm ready. But we basically signed everything over to the Lord. So we put our house, our cars, our investment accounts, retirement accounts, everything, checking accounts, our dog, our skills, our marriage, future children, and we assigned it back to the Lord. It really was his in the first place, but that sense in which I start thinking stuff is mine, I'm deeding it back. And then the quitclaim deed, and this wasn't recorded, obviously, this is an exercise, right? But then it said, hey, God asked you to be a manager of it. So he owns it, but he wants you to steward it, and he wants you to use all these things in the best way. And so it's so easy to fall back into ownership mode and use the word my. And I try and do this in my head rather than with other people, so I'm not preachy, but I just try and say, God, it's your car. Someone would like to borrow your car. What do you think about that? Someone would like to stay at your house, God, the one that we live in and we take care of right now. What should we do? What should we do about that? Is that good? What should we do with your money, God? There's an investment opportunity. What do you think about that, God? Is that helpful? And it's quite freeing. And and helpful. So it's a practice, but that quitclaim deed sticks in my head.
I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for that. That's encouraging. I'll check out that quitclaim deed. It's a tangible way to pass the story and the legacy on, which is a key way to pass your legacy on, is creating those moments and documenting them with something that's tangible that you can refer back to. I'm studying mission, vision, values, and how to pass that on, the legacy for families, and we'll be coming out with more content on that in the future. John, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for sharing your heart, your wisdom, and your passion for helping people to become truly passive in their income through lending into your fund and so much more. I want to encourage you to keep using your gifts and talents of stewardship, of faith, and of impact with wealth to help families do just that. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you, would you mind one last time, what's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, our website, klinkloansinvestors.com. So that's K-L-I-N-K, Klink Loans, L-O-A-N-L-O-A-N-S, investors.com. And they can request our pitch deck, just kind of get started there. They can even just schedule an appointment if someone wants to just have a conversation. That website will give you the opportunity to book some time.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much, Sean. And I also thank all of our listeners for listening to another episode of the Build to Billions podcast. We're also streaming on Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast and YouTube channel as well. And we're here to guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on their journey from millions to billions, because that's the journey we're on as well. And we believe that the key to scaling your business and compounding your wealth starts every single day with a mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. Our ultimate goal is to help you scale and compound your wealth in life so you can give more or all of it away. I'm Brett Swarts, and I so appreciate everyone listening and watching this today. If you are exiting Bitcoin, business, or real estate and are looking for ways to defer massive capital gains taxes, you can get started on your deferred sales trust today by going to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Also checking out the book, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan, on Amazon. And it's my story from a zero to the deferred sales trust and so much more. Entrepreneurial journey, but this will give you the secrets to building a capital gains tax exit plan. Don't wait, get started today. Appreciate everyone listening and watching, and we'll talk to you all real soon. Bye now.